Kapil SHELKE, you are the founder and CEO of Tork Motors, a company you founded in 2016 with the goal of producing high-performance electric vehicles in India. Your experience with EVs began, in fact, in college, when you led a team to create an electric motorbike for racing against the best in the world at the Isle of Man TT and the TT in the United Kingdom. You possess a master's degree in carbon fiber composite technology from Oxford Cherwell Valley College in the United Kingdom. You were also formerly the CTO of 𝐓𝐨𝐬𝐿, one of China's leading motorbike companies. And you've launched India's first indigenous electric motorcycle. Welcome back to the program, Kapil.
Thank you, Ravin. Thanks for having me here.
Kapil, your company Tork is an industry trendsetter, isn't it, in the EV space? In 2009, your electric bike finished third in the Isle of Man TT, and as a result became Asia's first electric motorcycle to compete in an electric Grand Prix. And then a year later, in 2010, your makeshift electric motorcycle was placed first in the 𝐑𝐞𝐯𝐵. From 2012 to 2015, you manufactured at Tork the T4X, the T5X race cars for the Chinese business of 𝐓𝐨𝐬𝐿, and then in 2016, you launched the T6X. And now, a year ago, you've launched that motorcycle as the Kratos, which is actually, in fact, very popular, with over 700 sold in just 2 cities in India.
Yeah.
Tell us how you came about this whole entire journey, because it seems kind of accidental and yet predetermined in your own mind.
Okay. Yeah, it's accidental. So I never wanted to start up. I've seen my dad do his own business, ground up, no funding. So I was like, okay, this is very hard. Just go get a job and life will be simple. But when I realized, so there's also one factor of, let's say, a small thing that I always want to do is, I love motorcycles and I also love technology. So marrying them both became electric motorcycles. And that's how I was doing for, let's say, fun. So all this is fun. Let's say 𝐑𝐞𝐯𝐵 and TT and working with the Chinese, still making money while they're spending the money and I'm actually making motorcycles for them. So it was all fun. But I think whenever I used to come back to India, I used to see there is a stark difference of what I tell people as what I do and what they were driving here in India. So they were driving at 25 kilometers per hour, let's say a scooter, and I was building 200 kilometers per hour electric motorcycle. So there was, in my head, I was like, how do I explain it to them? And sometimes I also thought that people don't know what we can build as Indians. So I was doing that for somebody else. I was like, "Arey, ye kar sakte hai, but why don't we do it for India and do have a market here?" So I also built a couple of prototypes, as you rightly mentioned, T4 and T5, and that sort of set a precedent. And people said, "I want to buy it." I also mentioned a price in some video and said, "I am okay to buy at this price." And I said, "Okay, let's at least make a prototype or a functional team who can make a vehicle that you can sell." And that's how it started. That's why the T6X came. And the moonshot to that was when we make the T6, because I had all built these motorcycles by buying components from European companies or Chinese companies and all that. I said, let's build everything in India. Unless you do that in India, the price point is not going to be of what you want to do. And I think that's how the ideology of T6X was born. But we took a moonshot. I will say that's the word. Is I want to build everything in India. I want to build the motors in India. I want to build battery in India and the BMS and the chargers and everything. And the motorcycle also. And that's, I think, the first 4 or 5 years after 2016 were built on, let's build the motor in India, spend some time there and all that. I think luckily we survived the COVID and I think Kratos was born.
So you're different in many ways because you're not importing a motor drivetrain from China. You're probably the only company in India that makes its own electric drivetrain and electric motor.
Yes, I think so. That's not a good thing.
Why is it not a good thing?
Because you need more people to make parts in India. Unless and until you need to have an ecosystem where people can give you. See, I'm only building technology what I need, but there's somebody who's building for somebody else, actually doing it better than us. And if we can sell it and actually making for a lot more people, the price point of that technology will come down. Effectively, the price point of the product that you're selling will come down. If you're doing it only for you, then it is the scale is my limitation is the limitation of the product price point.
So today, given that so many people are importing, there might be one or two others who have the same aspiration as you to make everything in India, but haven't quite got there yet. What would you say as a founder needs to happen in the ecosystem so that India is self-reliant on electric motors, drivetrains, battery pack, BMS?
So we've been through a journey. So the first journey was it's an ideation phase. So you have to spend time. So people have to spend time on R&D more, and that might not be an outcome. So I think this ideology has to change in India, that you have to spend money on a predetermined idea which might fail. I think that is not there in India yet, because everybody put money where there is more money to be made. But in R&D it doesn't work like that. So I think we learned the hard way that you can't just, I think there were 30 odd iterations before we said, oh, this motor might go and actually work on a motorcycle. And that took time and money, and there was a predetermined outcome that we had to set on. And lucky that we have good investors and they were like supporting, but I don't think that is true for everybody else, and that needs to change. And also I think we need to build great products. I think that has to change. We can't just say, oh, the price point is this and that is what I have to build the product for. No, actually the customer doesn't know what you can build, and if it is a good quality, better quality, a little higher price, he'll actually buy. So you need to build great products. Regardless of the price. You might fail. See, failing is one option that you have to take with you, and then let's see how it goes.
Do you reckon, in your opinion, there's low barriers to entry in the EV space for two-wheelers because of the myriad of companies that are now operating? Particularly when you see how long it took the first set of companies in this business to launch, and then how they were overtaken so quickly by others that were cashed up.
A very good gentleman told me one day that you have only two things you can spend. One is time and money. Second is money. So I think you have to decide what you have to. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. So let's say you spend time, you know what to build tomorrow. If you spend money, you might not know what do you do with the product tomorrow, and you will have to still find a way tomorrow. That's tomorrow is 2025 and 2024, and you'll have to build your own product because the customer won't stop at one. He will demand more from you. So I think both approaches are good. I'm not saying there's something wrong with both the approaches. I like the first one. Spend time. So you have a great team who knows what to do. You have a culture that knows how to build products. And then when you have to change as per customer demand, because there is going to be a customer who's going to say, oh, I want this, and you want to change pretty soon. And then there's a team who can go back and you can just tell them and things should happen in a jiffy. So I think both approaches work. It's just that what you take, you live with it.
So let's talk about Tork then, and the Katos, the motorcycle you've launched. You launched it 12 months ago, 700 on the road now. How has that journey been? Are you happy? Where are you at? What's the future look like for?
We want to go faster. That I think that's the predetermined head space that we're working on. But we also don't want to go wrong with the product that we're building. So we need some testing time. Make sure in whatever cities that we are entering, the vehicles have been. The customer likes it. There's no problem with the vehicle. There are no teething issues. There are no software bugs. The servicing is right. So from a customer point of view, the approach that we've taken is sort of a customer approach, and said he has to be happy first, even if it is, let's say, 1,000 people, but treat them like family. And once you have the product with all the knowns and unknowns solved, then scale up.
So you're a gutsy entrepreneur, right? Everybody's pushed to go fast. You've seen that with all of the big launches that came out of Bangalore. They went too fast, too quick, and in some instances there were some hiccups on their customer journey. And you're being solid, much like Christopher Columbus, knowing that all you need to do is go west and go at your pace, and you'll get to the promised land. What are the sorts of things that you're testing for, and how has that test process been? Has your hypothesis been proved correct?
Yes, the customer is not yet happy, let's say. So we still have to get there in terms of so I think from a product perspective, I think we have a very good space. But from a process perspective, how does it come from service, and what happens, and how is the issue resolved, and does it resolve in 1 day or 2 hours? I think these are some very small issues that you might not look when you're actually expanding too fast, and what's happening. And so I think that is where we are focusing on more. So if you think, I believe it's a marathon. So it will take time. You might actually get where you want to get. So it's because it's a marathon, it's a 20-year race. It doesn't matter if you are losing out the first year, but there is another 19 years that you have to sort of catch up.
So Kapil, you talked about all of the elements that you've done, and what's unique about this industry is that everybody goes through that journey. They end up going, I reckon I'm going to need to make my own battery pack. And so you've got a unique battery now that you're going to have. Presently importing cells, hopefully you'll get them from India. But you're having to make your own battery pack. As you said, it's IP67 because of the unique conditions we have in India. Do you think that this is a temporary leap that most EV companies have to make, which is to make their own battery pack? Or do you think this is going to be a permanent long-term scenario simply because a lot is dependent on your battery pack, isn't it? And therefore, most EV companies are going to end up continuing to develop that competence and improve their competence.
I think fundamentally, if you want to control the outcome, then you have to control the input. And if you don't have a measurable, objective input, let's say I want a battery pack does that and somebody else is giving it to me at a lower price than me, I'm more than happy to buy. So I think that is not happening today. So I think the benchmark is set a little higher for, let's say, Tork or all the other EV manufacturers, that you want to become better than the ICE vehicles. It have to perform reliably, let's say 10x better in every format. For that to happen, then you have to know what is going to go wrong and then you build for it. If tomorrow somebody else does it for you better than you at a lower price, then I might buy. But I don't think it's a delta that will actually go on improving, let's say go on increasing, not reducing.
Excellent answer. So let's talk about the challenges that the industry is facing right now, outside of the fact that you have to do everything, make everything yourself, or import from the dark side, as we're having to do for the moment. There's a myriad of people suddenly in this market, right? What was 3 electric two-wheeler manufacturers today is, 20, 25 maybe, and a large part of them are just assemblers importing from China, pretending that it's made in India. I'm going to request you to take us through a journey of the next 12 and 36 months in terms of 2 aspects. One, where do you see the industry heading, and how's Tork looking in 12 and 36 months from today?
So I think people have started buying vehicles last year. So now they'll start realizing the problems on the vehicles, or whatever good, bad quality or worst quality that they've bought. They will start making those necessary adjustment with their behavior. Where they can't adjust, they will technically buy a better vehicle if they have the money. There is a lot of word of mouth that will sort of set in the next, let's say 12 to 24 months. That this is good, this is bad, this is ugly. And that's how I think the industry will perform. So what the winners that you see today or losers that you see today, or even let's say outperformers, don't necessarily have to be there. The industry will change, because in India you don't buy the vehicle. You own the vehicle, and the family owns it. You imagine your son going to off school and then he's late for an exam because your vehicle didn't work. How do you feel about that company? So I'll give you just one fundamental problem. So I think that will become predominantly a word of mouth or a referral problem from here on, the next 12 to 24 months. And I think we are focused there, because we know I've been in this, I was on the buyer side for a lot of period of time from a motorcycle perspective. So I've bought many motorcycles and I've rode them and I've tested them and I've complained to the R&D and sent you numerous emails. So I know how the customer thinks and how the, let's say, a community thinks. I won't say a customer, because in motorcycle you say community thinks about a motorcycle. So when you start looking at the community and they like it and they will sort of refer it to their friends and family, then you will see the growth. For Tork, I think we are just focusing on one part, is can we build a great electric motorcycle. So there is a scooter and then there is a, let's say, a 3-wheeler, and there's a lot subsets of these vehicles that you can buy from and for your needs. But there are guys like, let's say, you and me want to go to office in style and still want to be fast and doesn't want to compromise on anything and still want to save money and be, let's say, the motorcycle extension of your mobile phone. Those are my buyers. So they are not 10 million right now. So I am not worried about all of them. I am worried about, let's say, 1 million buyers who are ready to buy an electric motorcycle right now. So my subset is smaller.
Your subset is smaller, but when you look at the global market, maybe it's quite big. Have you got the aspirations to be a global leader in electric motorbikes, or are you still really being realistic and saying, look, get India right, and then we can go out and have a look?
I still think India is the hardest market to crack. So you should spend more time here. Fundamentally, I should spend, let's say, 23 hours working in India. I still think that we are great exporters of two-wheelers. And if we can carry that torch forward, and we are one of the companies doing that, I don't mind. But focus right now is in India because we haven't even scratched the surface. So too big a market, too tough a market. The requirements are, let's say you solve for Indore, you might solve for Dubai. I don't know. Well, I'm just giving an anecdote. Yeah. If you solve for Ladakh, you might solve for some other colder countries. And so if you can solve the problems for India, you're solving for the world across.
So I'll stay on the question of industry players, just one more question before we move on. And when you look at the electric vehicle space today, particularly in two-wheelers, you have a lot of new entrants doing new things, and the legacy players were playing catch up, then kind of try to catch up by either buying into the new ventures or trying to launch their own assembled product. And the dust still hasn't settled. You don't know whether the legacy players will be big on this or whether something else will take off. It certainly looks, if I was a legacy player and I looked at Ather and Ola, I'd be worried. Where do you see this landing in 2 or 3 years?
I think electric vehicle as a subset so earlier what happened is, I was telling somebody else that earlier what you do is you make one motorcycle and you wish that 1 million people or 1 billion people like it, and then you buy from them, because you could not make the ICE vehicle too fast to enough. You had to make one
size fits all.
Yeah, one size fits all. Now you can actually change that. With electric vehicles, you might be able to say, oh, I can change a little bit faster, and this need is this guy and this need is this guy. I think that mindset is at Tork. So we might be one vehicle, but it's a platform. So I think if it's not necessarily what happened earlier might help you. Even us. So if you're looking and banking on, say, oh, this data point is this and this is going to happen tomorrow, I don't think that is going to happen.
Very good evasive answer on what's going to happen to legacy players. So when you talk about EVs, the next question that comes beyond technology and local content is range anxiety, charging. You've clearly gone for charging, not for swapping, for obvious reasons. You're making a premium bike. And when you look at charging around India, the four-wheel vehicles follow the European standard CCS2. But when it comes to two-wheelers, it's a dog's breakfast. Everyone's doing their own thing. Ather is doing their own thing. Ola is doing their own thing. Some people have got access to what Ather and Ola are doing, and others don't. You've had your own endeavor to create a Bharat standard for two-wheelers. The government has its own plans on what it's trying to do, and as with everything wonderful, the road to disaster is always paved with good intentions. So where are you at with what you're going to do for Tork with standardization? And then let's talk about your own initiatives to bring the industry together and where that's at.
So we realized when we started doing this is a bigger problem to solve, and then we are just, let's say, we'll be one of the player in this industry, because this is not a winner take all the market. So you have to, let's say, survive with 10 other OEMs or 20 other OEMs. You don't know. If you can make one problem simple, is you can make the charging problem. It's universal. So it is for me, it is for somebody else, and if you can make that solved. So we started with that problem. We solved it for us, and then we realized, oh, this might be also solved for a three-wheeler, because we also are a three-wheeler powertrain supplier. And then we realized, oh, this also might actually be solved for a scooter company. So we started talking to industry, and then we call it the Bharat Charge Alliance. It is not the standardization protocol on the hardware, because we think everybody is sort of zeroed into the hardware. But how do you, after the hardware, there is a protocol. How do you talk to that charger and the BMS and all that, and how do you pay for it, and can you interoperate? And so there is a second gen problem that we see is going to come. And if we can solve it with like-minded people, then you might solve it for, and that's how I think we met, and then said, why can't we solve it for everybody? And so I think we went on that endeavor, and we realized the customer does not want us to wait. So we've started now deploying our own chargers, very, very affordable ones, fast chargers. But I think there is still the Bharat Charge Alliance at Tork, and they are doing their own work on, and we started it, but we are not it's a democracy. So there are other like-minded, very intelligent people working on it. So I'm leaving it to them now to solve it for us.
So it's a DC fast charger.
Yeah, it's a DC fast charger.
3 kilowatt, I expect, 3.2 kilowatt.
Currently it is, let's say, limited because of the input that you can give. But I think tomorrow it should not be limited to 3. Because there would be motorcycles and scooters and 3-wheelers that should have a larger battery pack. 3-wheeler already have 3x of battery pack of what we have. So they will require, let's say, 6 and 10 and 15. And if the battery and the cooling happens, they might require 25. I don't know. So I'm just giving you an idea that there will be an ecosystem of DC fast chargers that should be interoperable, and you should pay, only use it when you need it. Otherwise, you're charging at home. 95% people are charging at home.
So how difficult would it be to make these CCS2? Because there'll be such a big network of CCS2.
So I think CCS2 is for cars. For motorcycles, we should coin a name, but we don't have a name yet. Or 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. So it's not difficult if the R&D people work together. I am not even saying there's the CEOs and the top bosses. I think you have to get the CTOs to work together to make sure that this works.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that in the next 3 years we will have a Bharat Charge Alliance or standardized charger
11
for 2-wheelers? Really? Wow. Excellent.
As a start, we should have 11 and let it dial down to 9 and
Excellent. It'll be a complex process, isn't it? Because everybody's launched already their own. For example, Ola, Ather has, you have, and so harmonizing these, and then what do you do?
So if you don't have the hardware right, I think it's going to be very difficult. But you have, let's say, Ola has the same hardware as Tork, and might be for simple, might be for ultraviolet, might be for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And if they have the same hardware port, then the protocol is much simpler. So that is what Bharat Charge Alliance usually works on. It does not work on the hardware. It doesn't determine the hardware right now, because that's a very unique call that the R&D takes. So you can't get in there. But once you've taken that call that this standard actually works, and this port works for me, then we might come in and say, now can we work together?
Let's hope that happens. I love your confidence in this. You're an entrepreneur who's had the patience through this process. And talking about patience, one of the things you said was you're running a marathon, and you need investors with you who are patient and are running the marathon with you. And in some ways, maybe you have that, because you've got amongst your investors, your angel was Ratan Tata. Also Bhavesh Agarwal from Ola, who came in twice, I think, in 16 and 18. And then your Series A was Bharat Forge here. Tell us about your funding journey and where you're at today and what happens from here. When are you ready?
So Bhavesh came in very early, I think, very early when there was no electric vehicle talk in India. So we were like
2016.
Yeah, it's like a piece of paper, and we said, this is the motorcycle that we build. And he said, okay, try. That was the idea. I think
before he wanted to make an electric scooter.
Very early on. After that, I think we took our route of saying we'll build the motorcycle premium and everything, and he's on another route for mass. But after, I think the biggest investor that we have is Bharat Forge, and they have been very kind and understanding through COVID, before COVID, after COVID, that this will take time. This is a manufacturing play, and this is not just the technology play. So you can't just build the technology and ship. You'll actually manufacture the technology at quality and all that. So I think we are working on that. Where can Tork work? Let's say Tork is good at developing technology and selling it and all that. And manufacturing is a big challenge. It's almost like building a factory, building like your own startup again. It's almost like that. The only thing is now you know what you're building. So we said, can you do it for us? And that's how we was toiling with the idea. Let's do a contract manufacturing for the motorcycle, because we lost some time in COVID. And that's how they came in, and they said, okay, we'll build it for you. Why somebody else? Why can't we build it? And then we said, why not? And that's how I think they've been very supportive. I think that's why they also believe it's a marathon. It's a quality marathon. So you have to build a great motorcycle first, ship it, let the customer speak for your motorcycle, and then. So I'm lucky to have them, because otherwise we'll have to run very fast.
So from your entrepreneurial journey, your future, it's fantastic that you've got someone, as you said yourself, Foxconn to Apple, you've got someone who's going to contract manufacture for you and they're one of your investors. So are you at the point where you're going to continue with this, or will you need further Series B, Series C eventually because of marketing? Where are you at with your funding journey?
We'll need more money, but that's I think fundamentally for the growth, and we want to get to, let's say, 72 cities and then another, let's say, 500 cities or whatever that number is. I have not thought beyond 72. So.
How did you come up with 72?
Because we wanted to be, let's say, what cities was selling the most and where is the subsidy and all that, and there was a drop down menu, and he said this is what is going to happen. These are the 72 cities that we should sort of get into. So the current focus is to get there, and so I think at funding, as when you're on the journey, it's like somebody meets you and you like them and they like you. That's the funding. We necessarily at the stage that we are, we don't go and look out for capital as, and we are going massively fast. So we know how much capital we have, how are we going to utilize that. So very fundamental business model. It's not all growth. It's also making sure that you know what's happening.
So you talked about subsidies, Kapil. How much of your business plan is dependent on subsidies?
Right now, I think it is dependent because the customer likes it more than us. Because the price of the vehicle are, let's say, 40% lower than or 30% lower than what it should be. But eventually, I think if you look from a standardization, or let's say, will the customer buy a little higher price vehicle? Yes, I think so. Because if you don't have a choice and you want to save money and have reliable, competitive, fast, connected on all this vehicle, there is no other option. You can't buy a, let's say, hydrogen vehicle, motorcycle right now. So from a lack of option, the only option is electric. And and from all the other options, let's say buying it from EMI and TCO, and you make all that journey, the customer makes that journey himself. He looks at all the options and TCO and his EMI. I think electric vehicle fits his bill right now without the subsidy also.
So if you look at Northern Europe, Scandinavia, which brought about electric vehicles over the last 10 years through subsidies, now the pendulum is swinging to the other side where the subsidies go off, but there's a penalty on ICE vehicles, and therefore the behavior is still driven towards electric vehicles because ICE vehicles are progressively more expensive. Do you see that as happening in India eventually?
I think the GST is already too high.
On ICE vehicles,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you should incentivize buying an electric vehicle or moving the industry there. So I think the PLI will help. I think there should be so I think the only downside of subsidy that I think is once there's no subsidy. So all the big players who are now selling the great quality motorcycle or electric two-wheeler are benefiting because there is a subsidy and they're building for it. So once you stop, they're incentivized to make everything in India and actually deliver a great quality because they're big brands and their name is at stake and there is word of mouth. So that is helping to build a great product. So I think that incentive should be there to build a great product in India at a price that the customer likes. If you take the subsidy out and it's all the market that you can import now from anywhere, then it is going to be a nightmare. I think, and that's the only downside that I see, but I think there are brilliant minds working on it. So I don't have to worry about that too much.
Super. Kapil, a large part of people who listen to us are young entrepreneurs who want to take the plunge themselves, maybe like you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
In the space of electric vehicle two-wheelers, there's still lots of entrepreneurs thinking about taking the plunge or have taken the plunge and now are struggling through the process. What is your biggest advice in 2023 to a young entrepreneur wanting to be part of the EV sector?
So I always think this way. You should find a deeper problem to solve. Go deep. Don't look at electric vehicles now because it's a common problem everybody is solving and the big people are solving. So everybody's talking about electric vehicles, don't solve that right now. So go deeper. Is there anything else that you can solve? So when we started, there was no electric vehicles. So nobody was talking about it. Then there was a deeper problem to solve. So fundamentally, you should look at, is there a deeper problem electric vehicles to solve? There are many. So talk to the founders, talk to the people in the industry, and you'll find there are very deep problems that you can actually solve. and the potential to actually make a very large change is there, still there. But not on the vehicle side. You can always build a vehicle. There's absolutely, you can great. I always tell my people that there will be somebody like us in Nashik or Nagpur building a better motorcycle than us, saying these guys are not doing the great product, and you should be worried about them, not the guys who are actually selling the motorcycles right now. So if you can find a deeper problem to solve, I think there is value there. Don't just look at, let's say, startup karna hai and I want to be a founder and I want to be called an entrepreneur. I think that fundamentally everything will boil down to profits, and businesses run like that on capital.
Well, I'm glad that the pendulum is swinging back to exactly that. A business in the end is about profits. It's not about burning as much gas as you can to grow. And I think with the funding winter that we have now and the problems that are happening with the finance sector, particularly in the US, but also in Europe and its translation in India, we'll get a little bit of sensibility coming back into the market in that, any business you launch in the end has to make money. Otherwise, it's not a business, it's a charity. So coming to the more mature end of our conversation, I want to ask you a question we ask all the talent that comes on our show. And I apologize for the very frivolous nature of this question, but it always brings about a very pointed answer. And the question is this, Kapil: if you had the opportunity to be Prime Minister of India for one day, just one day, and could make any decision to help faster adoption of EVs in India, what would that be?
Solve the charging network now and take away the subsidy and give some other benefit for Make in India.
Super. Kapil, it's always such a pleasure talking to you. You're an incredibly intelligent man with such refreshing clarity on your business.
Thank you.
Good luck, and I hope that your scale of 11 on 10 to get the Bharat Charge Alliance working in the next 3 years comes true. We clearly are rooting for it as well. Thanks so much for making the time to
Thank you, Ravin. Thank you so much. Thank you, team.